Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to the Vampire Diaries Episode 4. So last time we had a really good episode that had a lot of great stuff involving Damon, especially in terms of acting and in terms of humanizing him in a very important way. But I do want to mention here, I guess a couple people have been mentioning in the comments, I think, like really hammering in for me the idea that this is not like Twilight. And they're like using things, and they're saying things like, oh, it's so much more in depth, there's a lot more effort put into it and shit. And I don't remember exactly what everyone said, but it's like, I understand this. Like, you guys really don't need to keep hammering that in. I get it. In like the first couple episodes and everything, when I was like saying that it was similar, I was talking more on the very base level, like the just general concept. You know, teenage girl, an ordinary kind of everyday teenage girl, falls in love with a moody teenage quote unquote vampire who is hiding secrets about himself and is having to struggle with his urges and whatnot. He has secrets with his family and everything. There's a lot of stuff on the very base level that's very much like Twilight. There just is. It's undeniable. But yes, I understand that this series also is a lot more, it has a lot more depth, has a lot more actual character, and is just generally better than Twilight. I get it. You don't have to keep telling me in the comments. You really don't. I understand this. I get that it's better. I get that it's more in depth and the characters have more to them and whatnot. I understand. And I understand that the vampires are more like actual vampires in this. Believe it or not, I've read all the Twilight books. I've seen the movies. At least most of the movies. I don't know if I saw the last two. I'm not sure. At least. But I understand. I get it. But that being said, I am very much enjoying this a lot more than I did think I would. Because usually a lot of these teen dramas, just in general, no matter what they're really about, don't interest me. It's not as much my kind of thing. A lot of the time they feel very forced and fake, and a lot of it just doesn't come across as any semblance of realistic. It's so overdramatic and, like, no one acts like a real person in them. And there's some bits of that in here too, admittedly. But it's better than what others have done, for sure. And I'm interested, for sure, especially after episodes like last one, which, as I mentioned, is so far my favorite. But all of this being said, I'm still, at the moment, giving it up to episode 5. I just think that's a good point to just kind of determine my feelings on this, especially considering how many seasons this is and everything, and how many episodes per season. Plus, considering these episodes are like 40 minutes long, basically hour-long episodes without the commercials. It's hard for me to get into longer shows unless there's something like really exciting for me. So, like, hour-long episodes like this usually make me lose a lot of interest just because I have a low attention span, I guess. Um, but, yeah, I'm willing to continue to give this a chance. For multiple reasons. And at this point, I'm probably going to end up liking it, but I don't know. At the same time, it's hard to tell with me. It's hard to tell. I could end up liking it a lot. I could end up feeling very meh on it after that point. We've got 2 episodes to basically determine at this point what I'm going to really like take away from this series. Whether or not I feel like I'm good to react to it, whether or not I want to watch it on my own time, or just I'm not interested. No matter what the option is. And some people might say like that's not enough episodes, but it's like for me 5 or 6 episodes you get a good feel for the series. You tend to get a good feel for like if you're going to enjoy it or not. Some shows, yeah, will get a lot better after that. But I feel like I don't know. I feel like if it takes that long for a show to actually really get good, there's some issues. Especially when it's shows with longer episodes like this where they have to keep your attention. And again, mind you, as I noted, episode 3 was good. I enjoyed episode 3, but when episode 2 was not as good, and episode 1 was just kind of like in the middle of those two, I still have not been fully impressed yet. Because each episode has basically been very different in terms of quality. And that's something that just, in my eyes, can't be ignored. The fact that each episode has been very different quality-wise it's not concerning per se. It's just it's a little bit uneasy for me. Just because it's like the first episodes of a series should hook you in. They should have some level of consistency to their quality, in my opinion. Great shows that do this kind of thing are the likes of Gravity Falls, which has amazingly good, consistent first episodes. And the weaker episodes do come in a little later. But they allow the first few episodes to really stick that just first impression on you. And plenty of other shows do this as well, even ones that in my eyes aren't even that great. So I'm hoping that this series really starts to hit its stride soon and a level of consistency that I can get more on board with. Because that is going to definitely affect things, I feel. But we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, I end up enjoying this. Hopefully we end up continuing. But like with most shows that are, I guess you could say, longer seasons, if we do end up continuing through, we will probably take a mid-season break or something. Just to avoid burnout and stuff. So we'll deal with that if and when we come to that. But in the meantime, we'll just kind of continue on and just see what we've got. Hope for the best, brace for the worst, and make a decision. Because this isn't the show I normally the kind of show I normally would watch, but it might end up surprising me a lot more than I would ever expect. And it already kind of has to some degree. But that all being said, I do just want to warn you about this and say, like, don't expect me to love this completely. Don't expect me to be like super into this or anything just because you might be, or just because it's a popular series. Just understand that, one, my tastes are not always the same as everyone else's and often very sporadic. And two, sometimes even if the show is not bad, I feel like it might not be good for reactions. So that's a factor that I do have to consider as well. And three, I might just not continue to like it as much. As bad as it might sound, last episode could have, for me, been a fluke. Been more of the exception than the rule. And the rest of the series might not be as good for me. But again, we'll see, and I'm hoping that that's not true. As always, I hope to love it continuing forward. But like I said, we'll see. In the meantime, let's just get this started and see what this next episode has in store for us. So yeah. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episodes, or to the episode 1. That being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, while watching this, I was thinking in my head, like, of what I was going to say in the afterthoughts, because I tend to do that. I'm watching, but I'm also, like, thinking about it in my head, and as I say things out loud, I'm thinking about, like, okay, how is this going to affect my overall thoughts and everything? And as I'm watching this, a good portion of the episode, I'm thinking, like, this is not good. Like this episode is like level 2 or episode 2 quality, rather. Not level 2. Episode 2 quality, which, as I've stated, is the weakest of the show so far. And most of this episode was like that. Like, a lot of it is just, like, really inane, stupid, melodramatic, teen drama schlock. It's dumb. Most of it takes place at this party, and almost everyone there is so detestable. It's just like, I'm not even having fun in kind of the cheesiness of it. Like, there's only a few characters who are there that I like. And throughout this episode, it also starts to turn me on some other characters. Like, it's like, the last episode spent so much time humanizing Damon. This episode, fuck that. It's like, just forget all of that humanization. It's like, we're not going to follow through on that. We're just going to make him scummier than he's ever been. And it's like, yeah, you could kind of argue that the idea is that now that we kind of know he's putting on airs, that now that we know he's purposefully being an asshole and purposefully being evil, like, because of his humanity and stuff. Now that we know that, you could argue that he's ramping it up on purpose because of everything that's been occurring lately and all. But at the same time, it's like, you don't just go from humanizing your character in one episode and making him seem a lot more okay, for lack of a better word, to just ramping it up to 100 the next episode. You have to make it feel believable. The problem is, if this Damon came after episode 2 Damon, then okay. But episode 3 Damon felt like, it just felt like he completely reverted in character. Even if that's the point, it just doesn't feel right. And on top of that, this episode made me extremely suspicious and honestly kind of hating Stefan. I don't trust him. That is the weirdest fucking thing to say, because I've had no reason to really think about it now, or think about anything like that up to this point. Like, there's been nothing that's really made me dislike him. And it's not even just Damon's bullshittery and stuff in this. Like, Stefan is actively doing bad stuff. And it's not even just spiking Caroline's drink, which, yes, that was the most fucked up thing he did. And that pissed me off. Like, when it revealed that he spiked her drink, it's like, my first thought, and I even said this, is that's clever. Second thought, right after, fuck you, Stefan. And part of that is because I do like Caroline, and I really feel bad for her, because she's such a huge victim in all of this. And knowing that her mother is a fucking cop also makes me feel really bad for her in and of that. But Stefan so unashamedly doing that, spiking her drink, knowing, and then, like, kind of, how would you word it? Working things to where he made sure Damon would bite her and attack her and everything. Like, no matter how much you want to stop Damon, no matter how much you want to get back at him or whatever, using someone as literal bait, as using someone as like victimizing an innocent person as bait to just get back at your brother just because he's kind of an asshole is honestly really, really fucked up. And honestly, I would say that what Stefan did there is honestly worse than anything we've seen Damon do. Hands down. But it's not the only thing that really bothered me about him in this. Because it was brought up, and it's super true, that he is avoiding telling Elena anything about himself. And again, the entire thing about him not opening up about Catherine, that's understandable. Even Elena agrees with that. But he's not giving her anything. He's not opening up about anything. She knows practically nothing about him. There's all these constant questions, all these constant concerns, and things that just don't add up. So in her eyes, it's like something fucky is going on here. And he's refusing to open up about anything. That is such a massive red flag that anyone with any semblance of sanity would just dump his ass right there. And yes, we as viewers know why he's doing it. We as viewers know that why he's hiding the fact that he's a vampire. But you have to see things from the character's perspective too. You can't just watch a show or a movie or whatever else and only see it from a viewer perspective. Because if you do that, you're missing important context for how these characters act, what they think, what they do. All of that is dependent on not what we see, but what they see, what they experience. So the fact that, like, she got angry at him and was telling him off and everything, it's like, yeah. But honestly, it's like, you honestly should dump his ass if he refuses to open up and about anything. It's like he's being so secretive. It's like it breaches trust. And it's not okay. If you're going to be in a relationship with someone, there has to be trust, and there has to be a level to where you can share things. And you should share things about yourself with your partner. If you're just hiding everything, if you're just like keeping completely quiet about who you are and your life and everything about you. If your partner knows nothing about you, then there's something wrong. And it's getting to a point where I just don't trust him anymore. And it's honestly getting to a point where I'm wondering, between him and Damon, who the real bad guy is. Because Damon is very clearly getting back at Stefan. Like, it's very clear from last episode that he's acting out to get back at Stefan. We don't know for what, we don't know the exact reason, but we found out because they both dated Catherine. I think there's something there. I think it's something to do with Catherine and the fact that they both dated her. And apparently it was brought up that, like, she chose Damon or something in the end. That it's like, something about just this entire thing reeks of, what if Damon was the victim to Stefan? What if Stefan was the bad guy in this scenario? And that because of the events that transpired, it caused Stefan to become more reclusive and less aggressive, I guess, while Damon went the opposite direction. He was victimized so much that he became, in a way to put it, he became the bully to avoid being bullied. Like, this is the kind of thing that happens in real life. What if he became so hyper aggressive and so insistent on doing these horrible things just because he experienced that and he just doesn't want to feel the possibility of pain again? It's like this series is making me like Damon, even if this episode went really hard in trying to make him detestable again. Which, again, just felt unnatural. It's like the series is trying to say, like, Damon is not as bad as he seems, but Stefan is not as good as he seems. And I'm not sure what the goal is here. Like, what they're trying to do with this. Like, what is the reason and where is this going to go? Then there's the entire subplot in this episode about the aunt and her reporter ex-boyfriend who cheated on her and was apparently so bad to her that she fled town to get away from him. And then in this episode, it hooks them back up. And it's just... It just pissed me off. Because it's like, yes, this kind of thing does happen in real life, where people get back together with abusive exes, and exes who have done wrong to them on notable scales. It does happen way too often. But even in real life, it pisses me off. And seeing her accept him back after the entire party refusing him, insulting him, berating him, and then him promising her cheese fries, and that just wins her back. And she's like, okay, we'll go out to lunch. And it's like, the fuck? This guy made you flee town. You emphasized this. And you're getting back together with him, at least for a date, for cheese fries? I don't care how much you fucking love cheese fries, lady. You have an issue here. Like, this is Harley Quinn levels of ridiculous. And at least with Harley Quinn, it's acknowledged that it's wrong. And like, at least with the animated series, it's kind of made into a joke about how fucking terrible it is that she continues to get back with him. And eventually she does break out of that loop. The problem is this series is not a comedy parody like the Harley Quinn series tends to be. This is taking this very seriously, and it presents this issue as serious. So by having her get back together with him, again, even if just for a single date, is really concerning and is not a good writing decision, especially considering this is, like, obviously a series very much targeted towards a teenage demographic. And you're showing that young, impressionable audience that it's okay to get back with an abusive ex just because they seem apologetic and offer cheese fries? Like, fuck that. That is extremely toxic and dangerous. And there's also the subplot about Vicky and the love triangle with Jeremy and the rich ass, I don't remember his name. Tyler? Tyler, it might be Tyler. There's this love triangle side plot that's been going on, and it's just like, this is bad because it's so one-sided. Like, Tyler is so much of an asshole tool that, like, they even kind of say it in this episode. Like, Jeremy kind of says it to Vicky. It's like, you keep knowingly doing the wrong thing. It's like, it's so blatantly obvious that Tyler is like one of the worst possible people for her. Not only in the way he treats her, but just, he's an absolute fucktard, just in general. And it's like, it takes her into this party with him just kind of hiding her away in the corner for her to realize this. And it's like, it's been so blatantly obvious the entire time. And there's this love triangle thing with, like, who does she love more? It's like, why is this a question? Why is this an issue? Is she this fucking dense to where she can't tell that how terrible Tyler is? And again, while Jeremy has issues, while he's not perfect, he definitely has a lot of trauma and shit he's working through because of his parents' death. He's clearly a much better person for her. He clearly actually loves her and shows this and has openly been there for her in ways that Tyler just refuses to. It's just like, and it makes sense, because it makes sense too. I mean, that Tyler is such a fuckwaffle when his mother is this rich, elitist fucking snob. I mean, I'm honestly surprised Caroline didn't turn out worse considering who her mom is. And then you find out in the end that all these fucking dickwads in this episode are some kind of, like, secret society or some bullshit, who know about the vampires, who know about their return, and are now going to do something about it. And Twatface McGee, the reporter, is like saying, like, he can get that pocket watch now because he's now going on the date with the aunts and everything. And it's like, I admit, while this ending certainly caught me completely off guard and just seemed to come out of nowhere, it seemed to come out of nowhere. That's both a positive and a negative here. It's a positive because it was so surprising and it's so ridiculous that it's actually kind of fun. The idea that there's this secret society who knows about these vampires and are after this pocket watch for whatever reason. But at the same time, it's also just fucking stupid because it came out of nowhere and there was nothing to build it up. It's just like all of these people who we see throughout this episode who are absolute dickbags, they just all happen to be in this secret society, and it's like the only connecting factor we've really had with them in this is that they're all at the same party and they're all dickbags. It's like, is that what the society is about? Is it the society of asshole dickbags? What? It's so ridiculous that it's both really entertaining and really stupid at the same time, and I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about it. Like, I don't know what the intended feel that you're supposed to get from that is. And on top of it all, I'm just genuinely, I'm just really blown away by how just honestly kind of boring this episode was. Like, until that big ending part, it's just like, I found myself looking at the time multiple times to see how far along we were, and it's like, okay, come on, let's just get on with it. And when the outcomes are like, I don't know like what I'm supposed to think or whatnot, because it's kind of turning me around on everything, and not in a necessarily good way. I don't know. I don't think I would quite say that this episode was bad in the same way as episode 2. And there were some things that I found a little entertaining about it, for sure. But there were also things that legitimately pissed me off and bothered me to such a notable degree that even though it's not bad in the same way, I would say it is worse than episode 2. And this is really concerning me. Because as I said in the pre-thoughts, I'm giving this until episode 5 to like try to determine whether or not I really want to continue. Because again, this is a kind of series that I normally don't get into. I'm not into teen dramas that have romance angles and melodrama and shit in them. It's not my kind of show. But I admit that there are certain aspects of this that have impressed me. In episodes 1, 3, and even in this episode to a degree. But at the same time, there's also aspects of this that have bothered me. Or even straight up infuriated me. And even if the point of certain parts of this episode and others were to make you upset, like for example with what Stefan did to why is her name escaping me? I've said it multiple times in these afterthoughts. Caroline. Like, even if your thoughts on if you're supposed to be angry that he did that to Caroline just to get back at Damon, it's like that doesn't make it any better. That doesn't stop it from being so infuriating that it just kind of completely turns you around on Stefan's entire character and makes you completely distrust and kind of hate him. And while I'm definitely growing to like Bonnie more, it's like I don't really have any characters that I really ship at this moment. I don't like Damon and Elena, or not Damon, Stefan and Elena anymore. After this episode especially, this relationship could not work in my eyes. This isn't a healthy relationship. It should not be happening. Damon I don't really ship with anyone, just because he's Damon and there's really not anything to go off of with him in terms of that. I guess like there's like you could kind of ship Vicky and Jeremy a little, but it's still a little kind of just all over the place with that at the moment. And then there's characters I could see being a great ship, but at the same time, it's like, would one, probably never happen, and two, are not quite at that level for me to truly ship them yet. And the one example of that for me would be, well, actually, okay, two examples. One would be Damon and Elena. There are definite hints at this. There are definite hints in last episode, and even a little bit in this one, about the possibility that Damon has a thing for her. Like, legitimately, too. Not like just, I'll get back at Stefan kind of thing. There are hints that he might have caught feelings for her last episode. And that kind of carries over a little bit into this one. But there's also not enough yet to work with to truly see it as a valid ship. And the other one is much less so, because it's just more along the lines of, I could actually see them being really good for each other, but at the same time, there's not actually a lot in the episodes to support it so much. And again, this one is more of like, it will never happen. And that is Bonnie and Caroline. Because I really doubt this show goes anywhere positive with queer relationships. Just based on the time it came out and everything, it just seems really unlikely. It might surprise me in that regard, but I just don't see it. And on top of that, it's like, again, there's not really a lot like actually in the episodes to really support this ship. It's more of like just knowing the characters and everything, I could see them actually being good for each other in a relationship. I actually think that based on their personalities and everything, and based on like just what kinds of people they are, I could see them actually being a really good couple for each other. So it's not really a crack ship per se. That would definitely not fit this, but it's more of just one of those like ships that are just no chance, basically. Damon and Elena has more of a chance, but even so, it's just, again, it's just little hints in this episode and last episode. But there's not really anyone that I truly ship in this series right now. Because, again, the only one that really would count for that before was Stefan and Elena. But I don't trust Stefan anymore. And Elena doesn't either, and she shouldn't, because he's kind of hiding everything about himself. Also, he's a fucking asshole who put Caroline's life in danger just to get back at his brother. I'm going to harp on that. Because that, again, that was the one thing in this episode more than anything else that pissed me the fuck off. Because, again, he put this innocent girl who is already a victim in mortal danger just to get at his brother. And it's like, oh my god. I don't know, again, I don't know exactly what happened between them, but I'm honestly starting to think that Stefan might not be as much the victim in this situation. It's either that Stefan is secretly the bad guy here, or they both are. Because there is no fucking way at this point that Stefan is innocent in this regard. Not after this shit and just the hints that this kind of put in there, that Damon is possibly more of a victim than he lets on. That spark of humanity still being there and everything. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I can't say with any certainty. But it's just, these are the vibes I've gotten with this. And I know I've been talking for a long time in these afterthoughts. I apologize for that. But there's kind of a lot of ranting and a lot of rambling I had to do about this episode. So, with this being episode 4, though, and next one up being, obviously, episode 5, that means next episode is the clincher for me. And it really is at this point. Because, again, this episode really upset me on kind of a visceral level. Like, I think that's pretty obvious considering how hard I was going off in these afterthoughts. And considering that means that we've now had entirely back and forth in terms of how much I enjoy these episodes. That's not a good thing. The first episode I liked, the second episode I didn't, the third episode I loved, and now the fourth one I hated. So it's like, this is not a good sign. Even if it's consistent in the fact that it keeps going back and forth for me, or is just very kind of just generally mixed in terms of overall quality, it's like that's not really appealing to me. So I am 100% leaving it up to next episode. And I'm going to say that next episode has to not just be good, not even just be great, but it has to actively impress me at this point. And there is one thing I specifically think needs to happen. Okay, 2 things. I lied. There's 2 things I think specifically need to happen, and they need to happen next episode. Based on where everything has gone, based on what we've gotten in these first 4 episodes, I think that these 2 things need to happen next episode. Do not say anything in the comments about whether or not they do. Although, based on how things have been with getting things pre-recorded in kind of bulk lately, I might actually end up recording the next episode before you actually end up seeing this reaction. But just to be safe, don't say anything. The 2 things that I think need to happen specifically next episode. 1, the creepy secret society needs to be explained. They cannot leave that off for however long. This season, and I think most seasons of this series are like 23, 24 episodes long, somewhere in there. You can't leave that. You can't wait on that. That's such a big out of nowhere twist that you have to explain it. Even not necessarily in full detail, but you have to go into it right away. It needs to be topical for the next episode. Otherwise, it's just a random drop of... It's just a random, like, surprise drop of something that really shouldn't not be introduced yet. The second thing that I think needs to happen next episode, based on where this episode ended with their relationship, and based on just everything that had been brought up, I honestly believe that next episode, Stefan needs to tell Elena. Or at least she needs to find out. One or the other. He either needs to tell her or she needs to find out that he's a vampire. I'm being completely serious. 1, you guys know I do not like it when shows hold off on this kind of important reveal for too long. When a show holds off on revealing something to the characters for this long of a period of time, it just ends up feeling like it's irritating. Because it's like, we know, and we've known since the beginning, but it's like, and with how the relationship has worked out, it's like, there's no way to save this relationship unless he tells her. At least not realistically, not believably. He needs to tell her. And this is something she needs to find out with everything that she's been noticing. Even like with the cut on the hand healing and everything. And with their argument and kind of like second semi breakup in this episode. Because they already had one, was it last episode or 2 episodes ago? I think it was 2 episodes ago. Either way, it's their second mini breakup of sorts. And it's like, the only way it's going to be believable that they get back together at this point, which they're most likely going to do, for obvious reasons, the only way that's going to happen, realistically, is if he tells her. Because if he tries to come up with some bullshit like idea or line about like something that he was hiding or whatnot, it's like it's going to feel so fake that it's like she should realize that. Like, I have trouble sometimes noticing when people are lying to me, but it's like after this much distrust, it's like you're gonna kind of be on guard for that kind of thing. And this is something like I could speak from experience because I've had people break my trust like that. Not necessarily in a romantic relationship, but still. It's just, it needs to be revealed one way or the other. Those two things I really think need to happen. Now, could the next episode not include those and still impress me? Yes. But those are the things I really think need to happen next episode. Just based on everything we've gotten. But either way, next episode needs to truly impress me. At this point. Because it's like, with the consistency of being back and forth between liking and disliking these episodes, it's really just concerning me to a point where it's like, I can't keep doing that. So, I apologize ahead of time if I do end up dropping it. I apologize to you, Smurf. But hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully my issues are quelled. My concerns are handled. And next episode does truly impress me. That is my hope. That is my wish. Because I'm honestly after... And maybe it's just because of how much this episode pissed me off. And for the specific reasons that it did. But it's just like, I'm just not in a good, happy place about this series right now. So it's like, yeah. It needs to do something to impress me. But again, do not tell me in the comments below whether or not either of the things I mentioned or whatnot happen. Do not give me any spoilers. Just in case, because even though I've been recording a lot of things in bulk lately, just due to a couple instances where I've had the opportunity to, I don't want to risk anything. So just to play it safe, no spoilers. But that being said, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of Vampire Diaries? And thank you so much for tuning in and continuing to support the channel with views and whatnot and all of that jazz. For now, though, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.